The Great War, a name that would become synonymous with unimaginable suffering, began in 1914. Across Europe and beyond, nations were drawn into a conflict that would reshape the world. Millions of young men, many of them leaving their homes for the first time, marched off to war. They believed it would be a short and glorious adventure, but the reality was far different. The world had never seen a war like this. New technologies like machine guns and poison gas made the battlefields deadlier than ever before. Soldiers on both sides faced unimaginable horrors in the trenches. The war affected not only the soldiers on the front lines, but also people back home. Families worried about loved ones far away. Women took on new roles, working in factories and keeping essential services running. Children grew up too quickly, facing shortages of food and other necessities. The war touched every aspect of life. The world watched in horror as the conflict dragged on year after year. The cost in human life was staggering, and the scars of the war would run deep for generations to come.
Letters home from the trenches told stories of unimaginable hardship. A young British soldier, Harry, wrote to his mother about the constant rain, the mud that seemed to swallow everything, and the rats that were their constant companions. He described the fear that never left him, the deafening roar of the guns, and the sight of friends and comrades wounded or killed. Pierre, a French farmer's son, wrote of the bitter cold in the trenches during the winter. He spoke of the difficulty of finding dry ground to sleep on and the constant threat of frostbite. He missed his family and longed for the simple pleasures of life on the farm.
The war's impact was deeply felt on the home front. With so many men away fighting, families struggled to cope. Food shortages became commonplace. In Germany, the British naval blockade led to severe rationing. Families stood in long lines for hours, hoping to get meager rations of bread, potatoes, and turnips. Meat and dairy products were scarce, and many people went hungry. Children suffered from malnutrition, their small bodies weakened by lack of proper food. Women, already burdened with the worry for their husbands, sons, and brothers at war, faced the added stress of providing for their families in increasingly difficult circumstances. In Britain, food shortages led to the introduction of rationing in 1918. Families received ration books with coupons that allowed them to buy limited amounts of essential foodstuffs. While the situation in Britain was not as dire as in Germany, rationing still meant significant changes to people's diets and daily lives.
The emotional and psychological toll of the war was immeasurable. Families lived with the constant fear of receiving a telegram informing them of the death or injury of a loved one. The arrival of the telegram boy, a grim figure in his uniform, struck fear into the hearts of families across Europe. Those who survived the horrors of the trenches often returned home physically and emotionally scarred. Many suffered from shell shock, later known as post-traumatic stress disorder, haunted by their experiences. They struggled to readjust to civilian life, plagued by nightmares, flashbacks, and survivor's guilt. The war left a generation deeply affected by loss and trauma. The absence of fathers, brothers, and sons left gaping holes in families and communities. The emotional wounds of the war would continue to heal for decades to come.
The First World War ended in 1918, but its impact reverberated for decades. The war left millions dead and countless others wounded. Families and nations were torn apart, and the world was forever changed. The war also led to significant social and political upheaval. Women who had played such a vital role during the war began to demand greater rights and opportunities. The war shattered empires and redrew the map of Europe, leading to new conflicts and tensions. The Great War was a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. The stories of hardship, resilience, and loss serve as a testament to the enduring spirit of those who lived through those dark times. The legacy of the war is a reminder of the importance of peace and the need to strive for a world where such suffering is never repeated.